evening. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to the Spirit of ABNY Awards. We're here tonight to say thank you. Thank you to 3 inspired New Yorkers. Wendy Wasserstein, the late Pulitzer Prize-winning New York playwright, whose niece Pam is one of our honorees this evening, once said, "Our lives are not totally random. We make commitments. We cause things to happen." That's the spirit of ABNY, and that's the spirit embodied in our honorees. Each one is truly remarkable, and they are remarkable in very different ways. Collectively, they exemplify the values that make our city special. They are driven and yet empathetic. They are unifiers, but they celebrate that we're all different. They're fearless, but they know how to laugh and often at themselves. They cause things to happen. Our honorees are Police Commissioner James P. O'Neill for increasing diversity and inclusion in the NYPD and for ensuring New York remains the safest big city in America. To Pam Wasserstein, the CEO of New York Media, at a time when a brave, honest, and engaging press couldn't be more important, New York Magazine is telling it like it is and amplifying our New York worldview and our swagger. And Congressman Joseph Crowley, New York's champion in the House of Representatives. Joe's work and accomplishments speak as much to his humanity as to his wisdom, power, and authority. To our honorees, ABNY exists because of and for people like you. Thank you for what you do and for working with us to keep New York the greatest city in the world. Now, before we present our awards, there are a lot of public servants here, and I want to take a moment to thank them and to just mention them. I believe Mayor Dinkins is here, but I've not seen him yet. Oh, Mayor Dinkins. Now, I'm going to ask you to please hold your applause for the end, but that never applies to Mayor Dinkins at ABNY. Congress members Adriano Espaillat, Carolyn Maloney, and Jerry Nadler, Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, Secretary to the Governor Melissa DeRosa, MTA Chairman Joe Loda, Public Advocate Tish James, Borough President Eric Adams and Gail Brewer, Council members Adrian Adams, Francisco Moya, Keith Powers, Donovan Richards, and Carlina Rivera, Deputy Mayor Alicia Glenn, Senior Advisor to the Mayor Gabrielle Fialkoff, FDNY Commissioner Daniel Nigro, Commissioner of the Parks and Recreation Department Mitchell Silver, to our former chair of ABNY, Bill Rudin, and former co-founder of ABNY, my dad, Howard. Thank you all for coming. I want to thank our sponsors who are on the wall tonight. I want to thank Tishman Speyer for, again, being great hosts. I want to thank you all for your support of the ABNY Foundation. We intend to continue funding programming, research, organizations, and initiatives aimed at making our city a better place to live, work, and visit. Now, to present our first award, the Louis Rudin Founders Award, it is my pleasure to invite a man on this stage who knows a thing or two about ABNY and Louis Rudin, for that matter, Bill Rudin. So there's an old Jewish proverb that says, when you speak of your ancestors, more important than you being proud of your ancestors, you should live in a way that your ancestors should be proud of you. Now, whether you're a Rudin or not, it's impossible not to be proud of Bill Rudin. Like his father, Louis, before him, he's a pillar of our city. And in an era of complicated, Bill's straightforward approach to helping people and giving back has earned him his good name. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Rudin.
Thank you, Steve. Those wonderful words. And I'm so proud to be here with all of you tonight, and especially that my granddaughter, Elle, is here. So she's going to come up and hopefully help me give out the award. My daughter, Samantha, and my son-in-law, David, and my son, Michael, is here. So I have the distinct pleasure to give out the first award tonight, and it is named after my father, Lou, who, along with a few others, and some are in the room, Howard Rubinstein and others, started ABNY. And so we are so pleased to give out the Lou Rudin Award to our 43rd Police Commissioner, James O'Neill. On his first day on the job in 2016, as luck would probably not have it, a pressure cooker bomb exploded in the bustling neighborhood of Chelsea. It was indeed trial by fire, but we never saw Jim break a sweat. His swift response and a collaboration amongst the FBI and the FDNY to bring peace and order was an impressive show of confidence and leadership. So we all knew at that moment we were in good hands. From there, despite our booming population and ever-increasing density, we've continued to see our crime rates reach historic lows. We remain the safest large city in America, which for those of you who remember when ABNY started back in the 70s, that seemed a near impossibility. Commissioner O'Neill has prioritized making the people who keep the city safe reflect the people they are protecting, with recognizing that true achievement in public safety requires trust, collaboration, and connection between the community and the NYPD. Today, the NYPD has become the most diverse police force in the country. They have more than doubled the number of minorities in executive positions in the last decade, including the appointments of Rodney Harris as Chief of Patrol and Nilda Hoffman, the first Hispanic woman to make a 3-star chief. That deserves an applause. Along with those internal changes, the Commissioner has made progress externally with the New York City's community by carrying out his neighborhood policing plan, which encourages officers to engage in a deeper level with the residents of their precinct. The program has been implemented in 63 out of the 73 precincts and all of the 9 housing bureaus. Most recently, the neighborhood policing concept was expanded to the subways to improve the relationship between riders, the MTA workers, and help identify crimes. I have one little fun fact. If you are a runner or a bicyclist or a rollerblader like myself, and you go down the Hudson River Park early in the morning, you will probably see the Commissioner and a few of his friends doing their 20-mile bike ride from the upper Manhattan all the way down to the Battery. So it is my honor to give out the Lou Rudin Award to my good friend and our Police Commissioner, Jim O'Neill. Jim.
So the thing about riding a bike every morning, that's supposed to be kind of a secret, so. That's okay, no problem. I'm not the guy in the red and orange bike. That's not me. It's some other guy. So Bill said something about never sweating, and I really try not to sweat. I've been a commissioner now for 19 months, but who's counting? And I been through a lot of things. We had 3 terrorist attacks, plenty of city council hearings. I think Donovan Richards is here. I try not to sweat. I got a full disclosure. First time I ever really sweat was this past Saturday. I had to throw out the opening pitch at a Little League game. And I'm a hockey player. So I was like, oh, you're killing me, man. So I did it 2 years ago and went into the dirt, but there was nobody there. This time I did it, and there were 5 cameras from TV stations. There were about 1,000 people, and I did sweat, but the pitch did go over the plate, so it worked out okay. Hey, thanks, Bill. Thanks for that very kind introduction, and thank you for your leadership of ABNY over the past 17 years. And congratulations and thanks also to Stephen Rubenstein for taking the important responsibility of heading ABNY's efforts to make New York City an even better place. And to that end, really thank you for this honor. I accept this prestigious award on behalf of all 54,000 members of the New York City Police Department. That's 36 sworn members of the police department. And if I do the math right, I think it's, 18,000 civilians. That might not be right, so don't add that up for me. But what they do each and every day is nothing short of spectacular. Their commitment to the people of this city is, not everybody sees it each and every day, but I think that's one of the best things about the job that I have now. I get to see what they do each and every day. And as I look around the room, I see some people that might have been here 25 years ago. You might have been here in 1990 when there were 2,245 homicides in New York City. Last year there were 292. 292 too many, but it's quite a reduction. Back in 1990, there were 5,000 shootings. Last year there were 790. And that turnaround didn't happen by accident. Didn't happen just because criminals decided to do the right thing. It happened because of the NYPD. Thank you for laughing at that. It's one of my best lines. Along with our law enforcement partners in the New York City Police Foundation, and quite frankly, all 8.6 million people who live here, and they made a decision. They wanted New York City to be safe. We are the most populous and ethnically diverse city in the United States. 200 languages are spoken in the 5 boroughs, and more than 3 million of the city's residents were born in other countries. In fact, New York City has the largest Latino, Caribbean, Asian, and African populations of any American city. To be sure, our diversity is the hallmark of our strength, and it's our unceasing efforts and the understanding that public safety is truly a shared responsibility that made New York City the safest large city in America. And we know we can always do better, and we are. In terms of overall crime, we're safer right now in New York City than we've been in 70 years. As of today, in 2018, on top of a very good year for New York City last year, and I never say just for the NYPD, it's for the city, as of today, we're down another 8 murders from last year's historic lows, and we're down another 23 shootings from last year's lows. I can't really overstate how incredible that is. Our successes are measured in lives saved, and families kept intact, and the people we serve never becoming victims of crime and disorder. We are truly right to celebrate these accomplishments, but in order to continue to drive crime down, it's going to take the sustained, full and working partnership of everyone who lives in, works in, and visits New York City. The NYPD's neighborhood policing philosophy is how we're putting that into practice. Neighborhood policing is a crime-fighting approach that brings the public and police together as partners. It's revolutionizing the law enforcement profession. Actually, it's serving our common mission of keeping people safe. One way we're building trust and fostering positive relationships in our communities is by shaping a police department that is vastly more inclusive and vastly more representative of our great city and the people that we serve. In January, we established an Office of Equity and Inclusion, which has a broader mandate than we've ever seen before in the NYPD. We're now helping develop strong minority candidates in all sense of the term to assume positions of leadership throughout our department. The goal, of course, is to ensure that everyone in the 5 boroughs and every member of the New York City Police Department, irrespective of where they come from, how they worship, or how they self-identify, knows their voice is being heard. Members of all communities should feel they're understood by their police, and most importantly, that they're treated fairly. Simply put, we need all New Yorkers to view their police through a lens of trust. This is essential to creating and sustaining our essential partnerships and to ensuring that the NYPD continues to better reflect all the communities we serve. Neighborhood policing is New York policing. It's about making sure everyone in the city is safe, but there's a distinction. We have to make sure everyone feels safe too, and sometimes there's a difference. The culture of the NYPD has changed and will continue to evolve. Fundamentally, it's about trusting and respecting our members, making sure we treat everyone we interact with equally and fairly. That's my commitment to the people of the city and to each of you. And I'm very optimistic as we join with everyone here tonight and continue to make our way forward to make this city even safer and even better. Thank you very much for this wonderful award. Thanks.
Tonight, we're lucky to be joined by another great New York civic leader and friend of ABNY, Deputy Mayor for Housing and Economic Development, Alicia Glenn, who will present the Spirit of ABNY Award to Pam Wasserstein. Alicia's latest tour of public service follows her time at Goldman Sachs, where she headed the Urban Investment Group. Today, as part of her portfolio as Deputy Mayor, She's driving the most comprehensive, affordable housing program in our nation's history. We're thrilled she's in our administration. Deputy Mayor Alicia Glenn.
Thank you, Stephen, for that. And obviously, congratulations to my amazing colleague, Commissioner O'Neill, who not only is one of the most honest and effective public servants, he's also a really nice guy and obviously a true New Yorker. It comes through in the way he talks about the city we all love so much. But tonight, I have the great pleasure of introducing another great New Yorker and somebody who's become one of my heroes. I grew up in the 70s in New York City. I have to admit that. It's an age thing. And one of the cool sort of epitomes of being a New York kid was to read New York Magazine. I thought it was the coolest, like, adult, sexy, irreverent, fashionable. It was amazing. My parents were busy reading the New York Times or the New York Review of Books or the Atlantic, and I would literally wait with bated breath to get my New York Magazine. And again, I got to read stuff like Gloria Steinem's, talking about the women's revolution, Nick Cohan talking about tribal rights of Saturday Night Fever in the great age of disco in New York City. I read Faye Dunaway talking about, is there good life beyond Central Park West? I happened to grow up on Central Park West, and in those days, people thought it was there was other cool things going on the Upper West Side. The bottom line is I still live on the Upper West Side, and it's incredibly frumpy, so it's sort of funny to think about Faye Dunaway talking about how cool the Upper West Side could have been in the 70s. But now I'm a mom, and it's sort of amazing to me that I still get giddy every other Monday when the actual New York Magazine arrives. It's incredible to want to see a print magazine in this day and age and get excited to see what's going to be in that sort of iconic bit of New York. And it's also cool when my kids, my daughters, say to me, oh, well, aren't you just reading it online and sending me like little cute things about the Vulture and the Cut, and sort of I feel cool because they think it's cool that I read New York Magazine. And in many ways, I think whether it's political gossip or where to go out to eat or what's going on in New York City, it's still the Bible. And that's an extraordinary thing for a magazine to have transformed itself and still be, in many respects, the Bible of New York City. And I think that in many ways, Pam has defined what it means to be a successful magazine in a digital age. She's cracked a code that an entire industry is continuing to grapple with. And I don't want to underestimate the importance of her leadership in terms of what New York Magazine has done in a very important set of journalistic ways as well. Long before everybody was talking about the hashtag #MeToo movement and how that really had a name, it was on the cover and in the pages of New York Magazine where there were these extraordinary, extraordinary black and white portraits of the women who had accused Bill Cosby of sexual assault. And in many respects, that article did more to move the needle, Pam. It really did. That was very brave. It moved the needle in a very meaningful way, and now we take for granted that that's what we're talking about and what we're trying to address. But New York's brand is so dynamic. It's both serious and it's fun. You can also open the next one and see the coolest, Celine magazine with its perfect dress. And no other magazine is able to sort of do that in an effortless way. I think, to put it simply, New York, the magazine, is at the top of its 50-year game. And that's amazing. It's 50 years of unbelievable journalism. It's won 40 National Magazine Awards and 80 additional nominations since 2005 alone. And it recently won the Pulitzer Prize for criticism. And I want to say this is not a coincidence that I think its golden age is happening with Pam's leadership. I spent a lot of time at City Hall focusing on how to get women more power, more influence, more juice. But really, this is where the rubber hits the road. And I want more young women to be like Pam. I want people to think that Pam is the hero and she can continue to lead the women of New York as she had. My grandmother would call her a tough cookie, but the kind of tough cookie who has a purpose. She loves the city. I know she loves the city. When we get together, we talk about our childhoods in New York City, and she feels it in a depth. It's not just about the fashion and the celebrity, but the complex and living organism that is New York itself. And it's hard to capture that, but I am so proud to recognize her contributions and her leadership to our great city. It is my honor to present this award to Pam Wasserstein. And come on up and take your bow.
Thank you, Alicia. That was really lovely and personal and touching. I appreciate it very much. We are very proud to partner with you and the city on many initiatives, including an upcoming project, speaking of women. I'm not going to spoil your announcement in 2 weeks or so, but I'll just say it's a project that's very exciting for women. Congratulations to Commissioner O'Neill and Congressman Crowley. It's an honor to be recognized alongside you both. Finally, thank you to Stephen Rubinstein and ABNY for this award and for all that you do to keep New York globally competitive and promote civic engagement among all your leaders. In the pivotal year of 1968, it was the spirit of civic engagement that led Clay Felker and Milton Glaser, who you may recall went on to create the famous I Love New York logo, which is a little on the nose for tonight's award, but there you go. They got together and launched New York Magazine. From its earliest days, the publication reflected all the energy of this town, chronicling and, in a sense, inventing the idea of the great American city. They proceeded from one simple and, in its way, radical premise, that as much as New York was an actual physical place, it's also an idea, that there was such a thing as a New York way of looking at the world, and that's what the magazine was about. Obsessively analyzing power and culture and what's next and new and fun and cool, with rigor, wit, style, a generous spirit always, and the ambition and urgency that that founding idea demands. It's a humbling privilege to be the stewards of this special legacy. For many of us here in this room and millions more around the world, the idea of a New York point of view feels incredibly personal to us. It helped us define and invent ourselves. It's core to our identities. New York Magazine chronicles the global city that many of you all helped shape, one that's constantly reinventing itself and building on the previous generation's accomplishments. We've identified, created, and demolished so many trends. We discovered Brooklyn probably 40 times, between calling it the sane alternative in a 1969 cover story by Pete Hamill and declaring it finished, just like finished, in 2012. More typically, we create and we lead cultural conversations. And in that, we have tried to stay true to that original skeptical, but also buoyant and optimistic perspective, while expanding our business to include a stable of digital brands whose subject matter and whose audiences are more national and international. In that way, we're exporting the New York outlook to millions. No one has been more responsible for translating this point of view into the very contemporary multi-platform media enterprise we are today than our editor-in-chief, Adam Moss, who is here tonight, right there. Adam shares in this honor, along with the rest of our talented team. Our publisher, Avi Zimak, is also right here. Over 14 years, Avi. Over 14 years, Adam has drawn on our roots to innovate with a clear vision and voice. We're driven by the relentless pursuit of originality in the service of impactful journalism. Over our 50-year history, many of you have been our subjects, our sources, our obsessions even. So for all that, thank you very much. And while you may not agree with everything we publish, probably you don't, because, we have a lot to say. You can be very confident that we seek objective truth, we rely on facts, and the highest standards of journalistic excellence. In what I'm sure was a very intentional bit of timing for our award today, another clever PR synergy from Stephen Rubinstein, this Thursday is the 25th annual UNESCO World Press Freedom Day. I'm giving you credit for figuring that out. So I'll give you all a minute to mark your calendars and plan a celebration for Thursday. It's a time to recognize journalists who lost their lives in pursuit of their profession and to identify and defend against attacks on media independence. Of course, we should never take a strong fourth estate for granted, but at a time of heated rhetoric around the free press and a decimation of local newsrooms, these concerns feel particularly relevant and real. It's in this context that we at our company are proud to carry the flag for independent media, and especially for New York values and for the value of cities everywhere. as these values find themselves in real combat over the meaning and the mission of America itself, then representing them, supporting them, living these values is really critically important. And not just for us, but for all of us. You all share in this responsibility too. So in that spirit, we are very grateful for this award. Thank you very much.
Final award this night goes to Congressman Joseph Crowley, chair of the House Democratic Caucus and the 4th highest ranking position in the House Democratic leadership. So, guys, we got just a couple more minutes. Thank you for standing. Joe has represented Queens and the Bronx for over 20 years. His district is one of the most diverse in our country, and he has more than lived up to the task of being their voice. Joe is the unlikely founder of the House Bangladesh Caucus. Also unlikely, he previously co-chaired the India and Indian Americans Caucus. He founded the Rare Disease Caucus, and he even founded the kind of bipartisan Congressional Musicians Caucus. And if you know Joe, you know he's a big Bruce Springsteen fan, and we thought we'd spare you, Joe, from handing you a guitar tonight. Look, at a time when New York needs heart, understanding hustle and grit in our congressional leaders, Joe is all of these things. He has consistently focused on building strong communities, creating jobs, protecting access to healthcare and housing, and opening educational opportunities for working families. And as a member of the powerful Ways and Means Committee, he is one of the strongest advocates for our city in DC. Among the issues he's championed is protecting dreamers and opposing anti-immigrant policies, fighting to restore state and local tax deductibility, and passing the James Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act. Joe, we want to say thank you for being strong and compassionate, for fighting for the people of New York and the values our great city stands for. Please join me on stage, ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Joe Crowley.
Thank you all very, very much. I'm incredibly honored to be here this evening to be receiving this award from ABNY. It's great to see Howard Rubenstein here as well with David Dinkins, Mayor Dinkins. Appropriate that you're both sitting at the same table because you mean so much to New York. And Stephen, thank you for keeping the tradition going. The Rubensteins have meant so much to the city. They mean so much, and they will continue to mean so much because of your engagement as well. And Bill Rudin, Bill is incredibly proud of his family, and it was wonderful to see 3 generations of Rudin here on the stage. But we also know just how deep the Rudin family goes here in New York. Generations, poor people who made it big in New York. They really are the epitome of success, the success story of New York. So I just congratulate Bill, you, your family, and all you've done for New York throughout the years. So thank you very, very much. There are so many leaders in this room. You're all leaders, and I know my colleagues, Jerry Nadler, Carolyn Maloney, and Adriano Espaillat are all here. Carolyn and Jerry tirelessly worked on the Zadroga Act. They are the main sponsors. We all worked as a team to make that happen. So I appreciate the accolades you gave me, but I also want to recognize their work. And Adriano is adding so much to our Congress as a member of the delegation. We're all working together to make New York's presence known in Washington. I also got to tell you, as a kid from Woodside, Queens, I'm incredibly grateful. Yeah, Woodside, I'm the other guy from Queens, so I got a tale of two guys from Queens. I won't go into it tonight. But to be here tonight, I went to Mayor Glenn. Where's Deputy Mayor Glenn? Is she here still? I went to high school on the west side of Manhattan. It's still one of my favorite neighborhoods in New York. And I have been, I have been getting New York Magazine for almost 30 years to my house. That's a personal subscription. And it's not just because I like the crossword puzzle in the back, because I do. And I do miss Maura. But One day I hope to be lowbrow brilliant, maybe, or Ali. Just as long as you spell my name right. That's what matters, But it's a great magazine and a great asset to our city and really adding so much to our country. And Jim O'Neill, what can you say about Jim O'Neill that hasn't been said? I mean, here this evening, he's an incredible leader for our city, someone who is, I think, from a guy who comes from a family of police officers. My father and my grandfather were both on the job, as my dad would have said. And I know how proud they would have been of how they are of the work that you're doing for our great city. So thank you, Jim, for all you do every day to keep us safe. And I want to thank all my colleagues in government who are here today, too many to also go into the city council members and members of the state legislature. You all helped me make the case for New York and our priorities in Congress. It's been a tough time lately. We saw that with the Republican tax bill, which directly went after New York City and New York State. And I promise you, restoring the deduction for state and local taxes is at the top of my agenda and will be in the next Congress. We need to bring justice back to the code. And I really think the tax bill, beyond just being a bad bill for New York, we missed an opportunity to do something in a bipartisan way that would have an endurance because of that. It was a missed opportunity to achieve a fairer tax code and to show the American people that Congress takes the financial worries of the middle class in American society seriously. Because what I hear from people in my district in Queens and New York and across the country is they're frustrated. They're frustrated with the government that doesn't seem to be working for them. They want to see us focus on policy solutions for the good of America. And this is something Kathy Hochul knows probably better than anyone in this room, because she goes from New York, from the tip of Long Island, all the way back to Buffalo and into the Adirondack region. She knows what people are saying about government. And she's a wonderful asset for our state, and I'm so proud that she's here tonight. But it's long been my goal as well to do that, and do it in a bipartisan way. I'm a proud Democrat, but what I want to see is an approach to policy where we're actually listening to each other and not just shouting over each other. I often say that instead of just being known as a good Democrat, I want to be remembered as a good American. So I'll try to work across the aisle with my colleagues to seek the same goals and with the best interest of the American people and New York in mind. But when we can't agree, I will stand strong for what I think is right, because I believe that government can do great things. I believe that we can invest in infrastructure, building roads and tunnels and bridges and schools and broadband access that is worthy of our nation. I believe we can create good-paying jobs and a vibrant and strong economy that works for all. I believe we can and we must conduct a proper census and ensure that we count everyone. Ensure that we count everyone, because everyone counts. I believe that we can lead the world in innovation, and we can lead the world, period. And those shouldn't just be Democrat or Republican ideals. They are and ought to be American ideals. We don't know what the rest of this year will bring in Congress, but I can tell you that I will fight for New York and for New Yorkers. I will keep fighting for progress on policies that we are hearing people clamor for, like fair and humane immigration reform and sensible gun safety policies, properly investing in our hospitals, our homeland security programs, and the social assistance programs that millions of New Yorkers and Americans rely upon, and reversing the damage done by the tax bill and its impact on our great state. Here in New York, we have a long tradition of getting things done, of dreaming big and setting an example for the nation. And I am proud of that tradition. I am proud to so often see New York lead the way in taking on important issues and in standing up for our values. And I promise all of you I will continue to work using my voice and my seat in the House and at the table to fight for what matters to New York and for our great nation. I just want to thank one other person here in the room tonight. There was a study done apparently in Washington about job retention in Congress, a study of all 535 offices. And they published the 10 worst offices in Washington, D.C. I was not amongst them. In fact, out of 535 offices, my office had the #1 retention of all offices in Washington. Now, they didn't say I was the best boss in Washington, but they didn't say I was the worst. But that's a team effort, and I've been incredibly blessed to have a great team around me, many of them here tonight. But in particular, I want to just point out one person who deserves a great deal of accolade as well. She's going to kill me after I do this as well, but it's my boss, Anne-Marie Anzalone. Many of you know her and you fear her call more than mine, obviously. But Anne-Marie does such outstanding work, and it is a team effort. And what we do for our constituents here in New York, in Queens, in the Bronx, and in New York, generally speaking, it's because of Anne-Marie Anzalone, the team we have in our office. So thank you, Anne-Marie, for everything you do. And lastly, let me just say, because I don't get to say this too often in Washington, it is great to see you, Mr. President, the president of my alma mater at Queens College, Felix Matos. I love you and all you're doing in Queens. Once again, thank you to ABNY. Thank you for all you do for New York and for our great nation. God bless.
All right, thank you to our honorees. Everybody, Michelle Adams said we could spend all night here, so please have a good time.